and welcome to the 90Minutecynic podcast. I'm your host Chris Gallagher and I'm joined by Ciaran, Harran.
Good evening.
Louis McCaffrey.
Thanks for having me.
Chris Sermanni.
Yo.
And Christopher Boud.
Good evening.
Good to have everyone back after a short break. Just thoughts on that. Chris, thoughts on the international break. What did you think of Scotland? Did you watch any of the games?
Yeah, I watched the Scotland-Ireland game. And Scotland were slightly less mediocre than Ireland, so well played. I watched about half an hour of the Scotland-England game before passing out with boredom. Yeah, that was my highlight of the international weekend.
Great stuff, Louis. Yourself, did you watch them? Anything impress you about them, or as Chris said, do you think it was just a mediocre sort of performance?
No, I wouldn't say that. I actually thought the Scotland performance was pretty good against Ireland. Ireland started both halves well.
That's you getting on the bandwagon now.
Yeah,
Louis.
I told you I was reaching for it, so there you go. No, I thought Ireland started both halves better, but Scotland done quite well and pretty much dominated the rest of the game, I thought. But it played some nice stuff. I thought it was a very entertaining game, and the England game was awful. I went to my bed halfway through it, I think, because it was just wasn't worth watching.
Yeah, obviously I'm huge Scotland fan. Ciaran, you watched them as well. Anyone impress you? Was there any impressive performances?
I thought Maloney was quite lively again. He seems to be starting to put a bit of form together for both. Well, I don't see him for club, mind you, but for the country. For Scotland, he's played last couple of games, but it was quite clear you could see Ireland's game plan was to come and get a draw. They just literally came and sat in and just tried to kind of frustrate us. And it kind of worked because it was almost kind of like a kind of Celtic style performance where it was from side to side, and just couldn't penetrate through.
Yeah, and I kind of get your point. Looking back on it, I enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of passion out there in terms of both teams. Not the best football and ability from a lot of people, but it was a piece of class that won the game.
It was. I'm being a bit unkind, actually. It was quite a mature performance from Scotland in terms. When you think about where they were to where they are now, they're seriously improved. I thought they went about their business really well, set themselves up quite well. Again, Ireland looked a bit like Scotland used to be, and I think Scotland looked a bit like what Ireland used to be.
That's
if you know
point,
what I mean.
Yeah.
And I thought Robertson was terrific. I think he's find of the season. I think he's a fantastic fullback, and it's a real plus point. Bit of a sickener that we've let him go on a free transfer, mind you, but
yeah,
he's looking fantastic, and I see he was linked with Man United and Liverpool today.
Yeah, Chris, do you any kind of other comments to make? Did anyone else impress you, or just thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think the performance overall it could have actually been better, but the job was done. The goal was just absolute top class.
It's one of those old adages, if the Italians or the Spanish had scored it, we'd be talking about it for a lot longer. But I just think that, as Ciaran kind of made the point, Maloney has struggled at international level for a long time, and it's hard to blame anyone to struggle for playing for Scotland because, it's been so stop-start. But now that there's a settled formation and everyone seems to be playing well, he's just been impressive. What did you make of Scott Brown, Chris?
He was instrumental in the goal.
Instrumental in the game.
Yep, absolutely. He's fantastic. My opinion on him, but I think he's starting to show how good he can be, and we've touched on it before. He maybe isn't the finished article. There's elements to his game that can improve, and he's had seasons where he's looked almost a player, but he's had niggling injuries for a long time.
Always quick with an excuse for Scott Brown there. Yep. He's a 29-year-old professional. I think he's getting no more to give.
He's
really
pushed through the pain barrier for club and country time and time again, and all he gets is hassle from people like you, Chris Gallagher. I'm calling you out. Scott Brown is fantastic. He's a true captain. And gentleman.
I've been critical of Scott Brown in the past, and I think I've been right to be critical of him in the past because he's been dire at times. This season he's been the lifeblood of both Celtic and the Scottish national team. And Ciaran, you made a great point on when we were watching the game that the difference in the first half and the second half against England. I know it was a turgid friendly, but just in terms of attitude and overall performance, it dropped due to the fact that Brown wasn't playing. And then again, Charlie Mulgrew.
We're getting out of the way now, or
just wait. No,
Nah,
let it brew.
those
Let it
times.
stir.
Let it brew, Charlie Mulgrew.
Well,
Okay, right, so what we'll do is we'll start we'll start with Celtic. We've got a lot to cover, especially with Celtic and just the domestic game in Scotland overall. But we're going to start with a kind of question. Sting debuted for the WWE yesterday, as you can all tell.
hoping he was going to reform the police personally.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, great joke.
Yeah, that was a pretty good joke. Favourite debut or memorable debut or a debut that's, what lives with you? It could be one of your favourite players playing, doesn't necessarily have to have anything happening to it. I'm opening up Louis.
I'm just like get mine out the way before somebody else says it.
Gasping. Go on, Louis.
We can actually talk about Louis. It was the Batistuta for Fiorentina. He was one.
I was one.
And he looked up for the cop, shat himself. You take over.
So did the defender.
It's a
to be
deeply
fair.
personal moment.
No, I'm not going to say the Batistuta one. Obviously, I remember it well, but some other people might not. No, I was going to say because the weekend just passed on Saturday, Lionel Messi scored or beat the record for the number of
He
goals
scored
in La Liga.
his 40 billionth goal.
Yeah, a very important one it was. And I thought I'd reminisce and go back to his first ever goal for Barcelona. For the first team, which was when I googled it there, it said something about May. So it was in May. It was in the month of May, and they were playing against a Spanish team, and
Just like yesterday.
but he was just a wee guy, and Ronaldinho was playing, and Ronaldinho kind of chipped the ball over the defender's head for Messi to run onto, and Messi put the ball in the net, scored, but the referee was having none of it and chopped it off or offside or whatever it was. So a couple of minutes later, Messi has the ball again, he gives it back to Ronaldinho, and Ronaldinho just does the exact same thing again, chips it over the defender's head. Messi runs on it the exact same way, puts it in the goal, and it was allowed. And so it began. So that was his debut goal. I tried to say it like in a story format. I hope you all appreciated that.
It really didn't work that way. But no. So Messi's debut goal for Barcelona. Ciaran, thoughts on debut?
I'm going to go for the
You can't say
comical.
Batistuta.
No, I haven't wanted to do that. I'm going to go for the comical one in 2008, Scotland versus Norway, and that
Chris Welmo.
Chris Welmo, yes, and that very infamous miss.
Yeah.
Following goal. I think for me as well, it's the reaction in his face from
That's-
behind the goals when he looks and he notices it's going wide and he's thinking, holy fuck, how am I going to get to this stadium?
Well, see, that's the thing, though, because he was a guy born in Coatbridge, played for St Mirren. They went down to England relatively young, so a lot of people hadn't really, didn't realise he was Scottish still to an extent. A lot of people saying, "Why are we capping this guy?" He's doing, and he is actually Scottish, a little bit like Anya actually. But he always rattled the goals in, and he rattled the goals in at championship level, which was a lot of the level of a lot of players in that thingy. But as you say, just the wide open, the eyes look of holy fuck, and that's before it even cleared. That was when he just hit it. That's really shady. Aye, bit arsehole shady there, Ciaran. Chris,
4 words for you: Ian Right.
talk me through his debut. Can't really remember it. Oh no, I was at his debut. It was at Parkhead, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he hit the bar, and then he hit the post, and everyone was willing him. Like, yeah,
Because I think up to that point he'd scored on his debut for
every game,
every club, and then when he finally scored, we all wept tears of joy.
yeah.
And I think he went to, was it Brentford after he left us?
He went
Somewhere. He didn't score, so he fucked it all up. But for that one beautiful afternoon, I think it was Kilmarnock, wasn't it?
I can't actually remember. I could look it up, but
It was just perfect.
I remember that game though because he had a diving sort of header from a corner and it hit the bar and then he hit the post late on and it was like, oh, is he going to score? And then he did, and he did the old chicken tonight dance celebration.
Terrific. It was absolutely fantastic.
Can we all agree though that Ian Wright's an arsehole?
No, I actually can't. I love Ian Wright. I think he's fantastic.
I just like the fact that Chris Sermanni just swept aside his career because he didn't get scored in his debut for Brentford. Just ruined it. He just fucked it all up.
Second top
done now.
Second top goal scorer for Arsenal, scoring for England. But Boud, you got any insight into it?
Yeah, well, the first one that sprang to my mind was Roy Keane and that disaster. But try to think of a more positive one. Lubo. Because going into that, everybody was like, who is this clown?
Yeah.
We're signing this 33-year-old...
World Cup semi-final playing,
Nobody had heard of him, and everybody thought he was horrendous.
Saint Etienne legend,
What's Dr. Joe doing? Who's Dr. Joe? Celtic fans didn't know who people were at all. But
there was no Google, there was no Wikipedia, so...
But then I think it was Dundee United 6-1. Then you could see from the off that he had a bit of magic about him.
Yeah.
And that was a day...
I'm
just speaking. It was Dundee. It was the day they sacked Jock Brown because we started singing "Cheerio" to Jock Brown. Cheerio to Jock Brown. Didn't really work.
Yeah,
but,
it didn't really take off.
Spur of the moment,
Not one of the more memorable chants. Terrific. I remember obviously Lubo's Old Firm debut, I guess you could call it, when he scored those 2 goals.
A 5-1 game.
A 5-1 game. And Larson made an absolute prick out of Colin Hendry. It was terrific stuff.
The only Scottish footballer known outside of Scotland at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Braveheart. Fucking. Oh, he made lots of last-ditch tackles. That's because the defender would get away from him and he had to make last-ditch tackles.
He was really Scottish. He had a tartan jacket. I mean, it was like, hey, I was born in Scotland and I'm wearing a tartan jacket.
And he's went into... I was going to say he's went into administration. He's been bankrupt for the second time. How the fuck can you be bankrupt? Anyway, that's boring.
He's got quite a nice house down in Livingston Hands. I've got family down there and he's got a big massive house in the corner and it does not look like the house of a bankrupt man.
But is he not sold it?
I've got family.
He probably has now, aye, but that's one he had for years.
I've got family in Livingston Hands, but I don't know where he stays. How do your family just stalk famous people? Well, it's not that famous, you know what I mean? Let's
Livingston Hands isn't that big, so Colin Hendry moves in the area, you're going to know.
Fair enough.
Can we genuinely get away from this conversation? It might be the worst conversation I've ever heard in my entire life.
No, the last podcast was the worst.
Yeah, apologies for the last podcast.
It's Boud.
I stand by my work.
You stand by that? Jesus. I wouldn't, but no. Technical issues, no big deal. I think we just have to mention Larsson's pass to Chick Charnley on his debut that cost us that game against Hibs. It's the one that always comes back. It's just quite humorous considering what he went on to do. Bangura's debut. I knew. I literally. He's one of those guys that I said from the first touch. As soon as he touched the ball, I turned to. I don't know who I was standing beside, but I turned to him. I just went, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" You just knew he was.
His first touch was a trip over the ball. I'm pretty sure. He just went, "Wow!"
Should also mention
turned into the cat from Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Also,
I should also mention the best 20 minutes of a debut ever for Del Richter. Maybe a chance to play that song again. I don't know, Chris.
It's funny. It's funny because if I was going to play it, I'd play it here. Dirk Richter. It's funny because everyone always said it's very similar to the. We were talking about Matthews yesterday, and we'll actually talk about him. When we're actually breaking down the game. But everyone always says Matthews was brilliant against Barcelona when he played left back. That's the line most people come up with when they talk about Matthews, right?
I certainly do, Chris.
Yeah, which is maybe he had one good game, but living off this past. The Richter's always the same as well. So I remember those first 50 minutes, but I will bask in the glory of those first 50 minutes because they were phenomenal.
And the thing was though, but he didn't really achieve anything in them. He just looked like he could be a player.
Bit fast.
This is a bit of speed there.
And it's not really comparable. 15 minutes against Ross County or a fucking great game against Barcelona. Dirk, is MD get any hope for this guy, do you think?
On his Instagram today, he posted a picture at Edinburgh with, I don't know, Chapman would know, some Ajax player. So,
and a Ryanair flight that hopefully he's fucking getting on soon.
Hopefully. Before we actually move on, Juninho's Old Firm debut, where he looked fantastic, but then just never really played again.
Yeah, he was tremendous.
He was literally. I remember there was the chance it was because